Now, it's just the latest buzz surrounding the industry that Morgan Stanley expects to reach $54 billion in size by 2030. And amid that surging demand, the firm is also looking at the impact it could have across the food and beverage space. Here to talk more about that is Pam Kaufman. She's an equity research analyst at Morgan Stanley. It's great to have you here, Pam. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And is this effect already showing up, do you think?
Well, we see this as a longer-term implication for the food ecosystem. The growth in the drugs is exponential, and we see impacts to the food, beverages, and restaurant industries. Our biopharma analysts expect drug use to grow fivefold over the next decade. And given that these drugs reduce hunger, we see impacts to the food industry over the long term. So it's still too early to see an impact now, but we think that this is a longer term risk that investors need to pay attention to and that the food industry will need to adapt to.
No, it's fascinating. You know, it's one thing to say, hey, you know, there's a weight loss drug out there, or maybe even, hey, you can keep eating and you know, like normal. But the idea that this would really impact, and of course, anecdotally, we've heard that it really does impact what people desire to eat. And as a result, talk to us about who do you think some of the biggest losers could be?
Sure. So our research shows a significant impact on consumer behavior when they're on these drugs, which could have significant consequences for the food industry. We did a proprietary survey of 300 patients that are on these drugs. And what we found is that they cut down on the number of meals that they eat by 20%, the number of snacks by 40%. And overall, it results in about a 30% reduction in daily calorie consumption. So really, we see this as having an impact across the board on food companies and also fast food restaurants. But in particular, we found a much more pronounced impact on snacks, sugary drinks, and fast food. So within my coverage, the companies that can be most affected are names like Hershey, Hostess, and Mondelez.
You know, it's hard to be so happy to hear, but I kind of am. I got to go, you know what? Maybe the economy would do a little better with a little bit less market cap in those names, and maybe I'm a Grinch for saying that, but you do have some beneficiaries as well. Bell Ring Brands, I think they make the protein drinks along with Power Bar, if I'm not mistaken. Simply Good Foods, Vital Farms. So you think consumers might actually reach for some healthier options?
Yeah, so I think what was really interesting in our work is that consumers happen to be eating, or patients on these drugs are eating fewer categories across the board, but there were only a few categories that stood out where they're actually eating more of them. And those were weight management foods, also higher protein foods like poultry. Within my coverage, the companies that have exposure there are Bell Ring Brands, Simply Good Foods. They make ready-to-drink protein shakes and protein bars. And I think that coincides with people choosing to have a healthier lifestyle when they're on these drugs.
It's fascinating. Fascinating how you can inject yourself or maybe take a pill one day and it really has that pronounced of an impact across every aspect of what you're taking in. On the restaurant space, I know you don't cover that, but again, maybe some risk to Wingstop, Krispy Kreme, Domino's, Sweet Green, Cava already thought through as maybe some beneficiaries. Pam, thanks for joining us today. It's good to see you.